Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So last week, if you were here, we've made a beautiful pureed carrot soup, and after I posted the video, I received a message from one of our dear supporters, Alicia Gardner, asking me, could you explain next time the difference there is between the puree-based soup and all the other types like the velouté, the cream, etc., etc. So I thought it would be a good idea to make another soup this week. And as you can see here, it's going to be a corn-based, roux-based soup, okay? And in terms of the technicality of this is where it comes in handy to knowing all the theory of cooking and culinary techniques. So I'm going to give you a brief explanation about the soups so you have a better understanding. Let's go. So in this session today, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to show you exactly a nugget of what a course-like kind of lesson will look like and the types of details I'm going in when we look at things. So we're talking about soups today, and we're going to answer Alicia's question and what is the different categories of soups and how does that work in French cooking. Blackboard, please. Would you look at that beautiful blackboard? So Alicia, here is to answer the question. I'm repeating myself here. What is the difference between all these soups? Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at the top of that board here. In France, soups are not called that way, they are called potage, okay? But for the sake of the explanation and to make things easy for you guys, I'm going to use the term soup. And we're going to be talking about the French soup classifications. French soup, in general, falls under 4 distinct categories, okay? And that's what you've got on the left-hand side, starting with the consommé, that are called clear soup, potage clair. Then we've got the puree-based soups, the velouté, which is a roux-based soup, and then we've got the crème, which is another type of roux-based soups. Now the reason we have these categories is because there are very strict rules that defines all of this soup. And what really makes the soup a consommé or a puree-based soup or a velouté is one main component that needs to reside in the soup recipe that you're making. So if you look on the right hand side, a consommé is made with 100% of a particular broth that has been clarified, and it's got that very clear soup, and it's served with a garnishing on top. There's a whole section on garnishes as well that exists, but we're not even dive into this. This is just a brief overview. If you make a puree-based soup, your soup has to be made with a 50% component of a particular pureed ingredient that can be vegetable or even meat. And that's what we done last week. You see, the main ingredients, as what you've just seen as a carrot soup, was called a puree-based soup because 50% of the ingredients used there was a majority of pureed carrots, okay? And that was transformed into a carrot pureed soup, hence the name. Another type is the velouté, that you all hear in terms of soup. And this is called a roux-based soup for the simple reason that we're using a roux and a liquid thickened as the main component. So the velouté has to be made with at least 50% of a particular velouté type. It could be a fish velouté, a meat velouté, like a chicken velouté, a lamb velouté, anything you want. As a small recap, in order to create a velouté, this is some of the things we've seen in the course, you have to use a roux and mix this with a broth or a stock. That creates a velouté. So if you have 50% velouté, your soup can be labeled as a velouté of blah, velouté of meat or vegetables, whatever. The crème, which is what we're going to do today. Today we're making a crème corn soup. And to create this is also another roux-based soup, meaning we're going to also use a roux, a white roux as a base and a liquid to create that main component. But instead of using a stock, we're going to be using milk. And again, if you know the technicalities of French cooking and culinary techniques, if you mix a white roux with milk, you end up with a bechamel sauce. Now it states here made with 50% of thin bechamel. This is again another section that when you learn the culinary techniques, there's 4 or 5 different types of thickness of bechamel. So if you were not using a thin bechamel for that soup, you end up with something that resembles plaster. If your bechamel is too thick. All right, so that's this very high overview. So to answer your question, Alicia, as you can see, A puree-based soup, the difference is it has to be made with a majority of pureed vegetables or meat. And all the other types, like the one we're going to do today for a creme, we're going to be using a thin bechamel as a base. This is the only difference. There is a fifth category that is more obscure, but I'm not going into this. Now, to finish off, just to tell you how complex French cooking is, because a lot of people think, oh yeah, French cooking, they're just pretending, it's just easy, just throwing butter and flour. But unfortunately, it is not. There's nothing of being cocky, of being pretentious. It is the most complex culinary art there is. Okay? On the book on Escoffier alone, these are the numbers you can see at the bottom. Okay? They are 100, and these are real numbers. There's 100 consommé variants, there's 100 recipes of consommé, 30 recipes of pureed soup, 30 recipes of velouté variants, and 40 recipes of crème variants. These are all soup for a total of 200 soups as a base that is covered in that one book alone. Now, of course, a lot of fluff in there, there's a lot of ingredients, a lot of repeats, a different style garnish. We're adding a little bit of parsley instead of something else. So you can shave off a good almost 75% of this number, and I'm gonna keep 50 as a number globally, and that will be the base number of the things you should know. If you're a professional in the cooking world, you should know almost by heart how to make 50 soups divided into consommes, pureed soup, velouté, and cream. Okay, that's just a small nuggets of how soups can be complex. And I don't have a course yet on this. It is planned for the future. I need to do a whole course dedicated on soup making with all the variants, because it is very interesting. But that completes the answer, Alicia. Sorry, it's a bit of a long-winded, but I hope you guys understand. And it's just to show you that's the type of thing we see in the course, you see. Understanding what is behind the scene. How do we build up recipe? What are the building blocks of French cooking? It's not a commercial stunt. I'm not trying to sell you something just for the sake of it. It is a useful course. I'm just telling it for the one that wants to learn, okay? But now we're all ready, and let's move on to our corn soup recipe, and that's going to be a crème roux based soup. The first thing, of course, food prep. So for this, for this soup, this cream soup is very simple. The taste is going to mainly come from corns. So we're going to have to prepare bechamel, and then puree the corns, mix together, and top up with a bit of milk, bit of cream, and just add some seasoning. So make sure you got all of your ingredients ready. All the ingredients will be listed in the video description. And so I've weighed my flour, the cream, the butter, I've got an onion, my milk, and the corn. And once you've got this, we can go on the stove. Now the first thing we need to take care of is the bechamel sauce. We're making a thin version. And this time, for something different, we're not going to infuse the milk with onion, because the corn or the maize, depending on how you call it, is going to be very overpowering. So we're just going to do straight that technique using a warm roux and use cold milk. As soon as the butter is melted, we're going to add all of the flour in. You can put this on low heat as soon as it's in, because we don't want any coloration, and we're going to cook that roux for 2.5 minutes. My roux is not cooked. I'm moving now to a whisk, and I'm going to add the cold milk in, and I'm going to raise my heat to medium high to start the thickening process. My bechamel start to form. As you can see, it's much thicker now. If I take a spoon, I can show you, see. And of course, I've put only half the milk, so I'm now going to start to incorporate the rest, and then add my seasoning. For the seasoning, it's very straightforward. I'm going to take half an onion. That's going to infuse and give some kind of onion flavor, and a good pinch of salt. You can add pepper if you want, but try to add white pepper if you do, because otherwise the black pepper is going to give black dots everywhere in your preparation. My seasoning is now in, and I'm going to wait until my preparation starts to boil. My bechamel sauce starts to boil. I'm going to reduce the heat to a simmer, and I'm going to leave this to cook on the back of my stove for a good 10 minutes. My bechamel is now simmering, and I'm going to bring a pan with a good liter of water to the boil to blanch my corn with a little bit of salt in the water. Okay, water is boiling. I'm putting all of the corn in. And the boiling is going to stop, and I'm just going to wait until the boils come back and count about 2 minutes, and then take it out and rinse it. Now that our corn or maize is ready, we're going back to the bechamel. The first thing we're going to do is to fish out that little piece of onion and discard it. The corn can now go in. Okay, and we're gonna put everything in the bechamel sauce. So you know the drill for that one. Stick blender in, and we're gonna process the whole lot. All done, and look at this lovely color. As soon as you're done blitzing the corn, what we want to do, of course, is filtering our mix through a sieve. You can go in batches to make sure we only keep the good stuff, as always. So you can take your time and pass all that lovely cream of corn or maize through the sieve. And now for the cream. So the cream is at your own discretion. You don't need to put tons of it. I'm gonna start bit by bit, and I don't want to change the color too much. And really that soup is an example of a soup that allows the main ingredient to speak for itself. At the end of the day, this is a maize or corn soup. You don't need to have garlics, onions, herbs and all kinds of things of stock and anything like that. And this is celebrating corn. I'm gonna warm this up a little bit and then I'm gonna serve my soup. All right, here we are. So this is our second soup. So little recap. This is a cream, a roux base corn or maize soup with a base of a thin bechamel. This is what we've seen in the explanation for Alicia. So let's try to serve this. I'm gonna be very careful and try to add some beautiful soup. Okay, I've tried to put the camera a little bit closer, and here basically it is just a matter of sprinkling a little bit of fresh corn, and I'll put a little piece of green in the middle. And there we have it. Look, that little piece of oregano here has made the whole plate really shine. So today we've answered Alicia's question and we've learned how to make a second type of soup from that matrix I showed you. So this is the roux base cream types of soup. This is a corn or maize cream. In French it's called une crème de maïs, Escoffier style. So really, I know that a lot of people love corn, including me. That's one of the few things I know in life. So if you want to try a simple soup at home, if you like corn, that would be one of the recipe really to give a go, because it's absolutely elegant, absolutely beautiful. But that's it for today. I'll see you all next time, and we'll move on from the soup and start making some brand new French recipe.